This is your Real Agriculture Update brought to you by the Mind Your Farm Business podcast. Stay on top of farm management issues year-round at mindyourfarmbusiness.com. This is Sean Haney, founder of RealAgriculture.com. Recently, we launched the new podcast called the Pest and Predator Podcast. My first guest was Jennifer Otani. She's with AAFC in Beaver Lodge, Alberta. We talked about the benefits of beneficial insects. Now, a lot of growers hear about beneficial insects all the time. From your standpoint, define them for us. What is a beneficial insect?
Well, when we talk about beneficial insects, there are actually some other arthropods, but let's just keep it to insects. There is a huge number of species. These can be pollinators, predators, and parasitoids. All of these various organisms, which are insects, they have some very complex life cycles and interactions with some of our most important economic pests. And I think one of the great things that you're going to be doing with this podcast series is hopefully taking some in-depth examination of these various species and just how important they are, but also just how pervasive they are. And I think one of the cool things about all of these beneficials, we're hoping that growers and agrologists really start to maybe also understand that they're part of a really important system that basically helps regulate some of our most important pest populations.
So were they misunderstood or forgotten about for a period of time? What happened here?
So that's a really good question. You know, as entomologists, we spend a lot of our time researching insect pests and looking at some of these interactions which involve these beneficials. I wouldn't say that they've been forgotten, but it's maybe an area of research that a lot of producers maybe don't have as much appreciation for, simply because it's actually really tough data to collect. So a number of people have been working on this globally for a very long time. In fact, originally before there were pesticides that were used in control, some of our most important insect control was from biological control. I would say now we're starting to understand better some of these interactions and how some of these beneficials interact with our insect pests, and really starting to understand maybe with a very different perspective how we need to augment and preserve in order to maybe make the most of what is essentially free labor out in some of these fields. So it's not a situation that anyone's really forgotten about them. It's more that as agriculture continues to evolve, some of our control methods we start to see kind of come in vogue and then maybe build more tools. We're starting to better understand how these beneficials are actually functioning, particularly in field crops.
Yeah, I think for a while we sort of thought of insects as like we do weeds, right? And so when we have a crop and we have weeds in the field, we see those weeds as removing yield from our crop. And so we try to eliminate all of those weeds. And I think we kind of looked at insects sort of the same way for a period of time. But now we've really, through a lot of research that people at Ag Canada and some of the provincial stations, a lot of this work that's being done, we're really getting to the point of realizing that we've got a whole bunch of insects that, as we label them beneficials, that are really, like you said, free labor. They're working for us inside that canopy, preserving and actually enhancing yield in some cases.
So it's interesting that you actually have that comparison, because I think what people need to understand is that when we're dealing with insect pests, it's not as if people aren't doing any research, but some of the most and highest priority research that would have been done first with regard to insect pests and field crops would be how to manage outbreaking populations. But one of the things people need to understand is now that as we develop more data, as we have better research tools to kind of tease apart how, what makes an insect pest outbreak, we start to see that there are other factors, other relationships that are starting to contribute or maybe even regulate some of these pest populations. So it's a question of having more data, more information, and being able to understand some of these relationships, especially in regard to some of our field crops that are grown across the prairies.
You can find the rest of my conversation with Jennifer Otani at realagriculture.com. This has been your Real Agriculture Update. You can find out more about this issue or many others at realagriculture.com.